Welcome. I'm Keith Reynolds, founder and CEO of Publio, and this is the Publio podcast, Follow Your North Star. This is a show for entrepreneurs, CEOs, managers, and anyone that's interested in using media to drive marketing and customer engagement. So we're glad to have you. Publio, the company that I founded, is a consulting, training, and development and media company. And we have this podcast, which we're really starting to get excited, Jesse, about the engagement we're getting on this. Thank you for all your hard work. We offer a workshop to individuals and also to teams, and we have done for you consulting. So if you want to put up a media property like this and get your company into the 21st century, we're here to help. So welcome, Jesse. It's great to have you again for another episode.
Thanks, Keith. Glad to be here, man.
You bet. You bet. What'd you do this weekend?
Well, I'm actually starting to get ski season going. So I brought my skis in to get sharpened and waxed, and I'm praying for a little snow. I think they said there was going to be a little bit for Thanksgiving, but I'm not sure now, but keeping my fingers crossed for sure.
Well, we had 65-degree weather this past weekend, so I hope you get your wish to come true here.
We'll see. It's a long shot, but we'll see.
All right. Well, let's get started. We had a really special interview this past week with Bryan Reynolds. You may see the connection to here, but Bryan is the VP of Marketing and Public Relations for Episcopal Retirement Services, a regional network of retirement homes and other assisted living and even meal delivery services throughout the Cincinnati, Ohio, and Kentucky, Western Kentucky area. And he's been at the inbound marketing HubSpot engagement for 9 years, 1,500 not podcasts, but 1,500 blogs over the last 9 years.
Wow.
And just a fascinating story. So as much as I'm pushing him as my brother, he's a professional in his own right.
Yeah, he's a really nice guy. Obviously the good Reynolds, as I saw pretty quickly. But no, it's so noble what he's doing, man. He's helping so many people out, and you don't really hear about marketing being involved in retirement communities. But having heard him talk about it, you can see there's such a huge need for it in order to like provide these people with everything that they need, and be able to help everybody in the area. He was, and I was even most fascinated by your and his pioneering of the web design industry back in the early 90s. He showed me some pictures of you that hopefully we can get into some of this. We can put on the podcast somehow.
You're not going to play the video, are you?
No, I'll save it for the end. Maybe you guys will get lucky. It'll be a little bonus at the end of the episode. But seeing you in your 90s getup was fantastic. It made my week for sure.
That was a lot of fun. And it's kind of cool. We're starting to get into the idea of some bonus episodes. We have Dan Chichester as well. Talk about comic books with you. I know somebody who likes comic books.
Yeah, I think that one I might actually take the lead on that one. So
I think you should.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, it's a real pleasure to introduce Bryan Reynolds, and it's been really fun working with you on the show, Jesse.
Thanks. You too, Keith.
All right. Make it a great day.
So beyond being your little brother, Keith, I am the Vice President of Marketing with Episcopal Retirement Services. We are a not-for-profit senior services and senior living organization based in Cincinnati, Ohio. We're a regional organization. We offer 3 continuing care retirement communities here in Cincinnati and the Louisville area. We've got another division of 30 what we call affordable living communities for seniors with limited income, where we're not just providing housing, but some services to really help seniors successfully age in place as long as possible. And then we have some community-based services like the Meals on Wheels program that we also operate in the area. So again, really more regional in nature. I've been with the organization 9 years. I started as the digital director, developing a strategy, and then grew into the role of vice president after my previous boss retired.
And that's much broader responsibilities from digital. Now you've incorporated that into all of marketing and public relations.
Correct. Yeah. So I think over the time I was there, as my boss was moving towards retirement, my responsibilities were more in an integrated nature to oversee, print and other media, to make sure they were all aligning and really working together as one kind of a series of channels that really pointed to our digital infrastructure that we were building to help build relationships with our customers.
And early adopter of HubSpot and inbound marketing.
Yeah, that was really at one of those points where inbound marketing was becoming more prevalent, and it really we've stayed with it throughout the years and really seen it grow. Our audience and our ability to build those relationships with our customers and the families that we support.
Yeah, and it's been interesting, just over holiday dinner kind of conversations over the years, just to see how you segment that, because you've got people considering putting their parents in,
right?
You've got people that live there, you've got people that work there, you have very diverse audience.
Yeah. I mean, I think, we definitely did the work on persona development, and, whether that be an adult child that sees their loved one during the holidays and says, boy, maybe my parent needs some help, or older adults that are maybe more planners in nature and want to get into a community to live maybe a richer life, not do all the maintenance on the home or take care of the home like they need to, so they can really take on their passions in life. And then understanding that journey. And we're providing content really to appeal to that and advise the families on, how our services and our housing can really help them and their families through their journey as people age.
And then one thing we'll touch on a little later, but I'll just mention that out of that background and being able to spend 9 years at it, you've turned it into a tool that the senior management embraces, and it's a much higher.
Yeah, it's really been cool to see this evolve since we started this 9 years ago. It was starting with some blogs and some advanced content, and really to see the audience build over time. We might have had a handful of people downloading content and filling out forms 8-9 years ago, and now it's hundreds of people that are really downloading, which allows us then to keep that dialogue going through automated email marketing. So and then of course we have our RSS feeds or subscriptions to people that are downloading the vlogs, or reading the blog. It's really been cool to see that audience build over 9 years. And then of course the, I guess, long-term tail effect of SEO from that content. So it's been an amazing system to see really build over the years.
Yeah, so we'll dive in a little bit of what the dynamic is for you in doing that. But you can see the scene, when you're talking about things that take 9 years to unfold, you are working for a very forward-thinking organization that's learning and applying it. It's very cool.
Right. Yeah, the senior living industry wasn't always traditionally very well known for adopting new technologies or having sophisticated sales and marketing processes, but I've seen it really develop over the years, along with our, the way our organization has really done it, and they're very strategic in nature. So they really saw the need to have some kind of strategy in place, and it's really paid off for the organization.
Very cool. We're working with, and I hope to have as guests, Paul and Susan Doyle, who have a local business here that are
Mhm.
essentially a feeder to organizations like yours locally,
Right.
and
Right.
they've been seeing the adoption as well.
Yeah.
So before we dive in to the next phase, the real quick big brother, little brother story here is that in
Yeah.
1999, you moved out here
Mhm.
to Stamford, Connecticut with a
Yep.
degree in electronic media. And
Yep.
we had the hot web development firm in
Right.
Connecticut. Tell us a little bit about your experience working together with me.
Yeah, so that was so much fun. As you mentioned, I just graduated from the University of Cincinnati with really a television production background, but that was a point, man, everybody wanted a website at that point. And I think, whether it was e-commerce or professional services, and I think we got into some biotechnology, biopharmaceutical clients towards the end as well. It was an amazing ride. To really be on that early end of developing websites. It was very static at that point, but I think towards the end we could really see the future coming, where it was the social media was starting to be talked about. Video as a tool over the internet was really starting to evolve. Online customer service. So it was really an exciting time, and kind of that first tech bubble that happened in the early 2000s.
Absolutely. And then after 9/11, you moved back to Cincinnati and got where you are today. But thanks for sharing that.
Yeah,
I think formative. It was formative for both of us. We were
it
inventing
was.
as we found people who had needs. Like as you said, everybody had the buzz. They needed to get a website, but we,
Hmm.
rather than having dancing bears and cool technology, we were coming at it with a lot of your experience in television production.
Yeah,
And
yeah. And I think what was really cool about that, it helped lay some really good groundwork for the work that my organization and I'm doing today. When I moved to Cincinnati, I got a little more experience and understanding of other medium, whether that print or public relations. So it really kind of built on each other to come together really quite nicely for my role now with Episcopal Retirement Services and what we're doing. And we're having a lot of fun with it.
very cool. So when we first started planning this, this is all about storytelling. And one thing that really caught my attention was early in the conversation, you talked about having just finished up an interview with
Mhm.
Jeff.
Yeah.
And I thought that's kind of set the stage for the rest of the conversation.
Yeah. So I had just come off of doing my own podcast interview with a new chef at one of our communities, and it was really a fun conversation to hear his kind of development from a cook to a sous chef, and now to be the chef at one of our communities. And he has this great big personality, and I just had a lot of fun talking with him. But he at one point really talked about feeling like he has arrived as being the chef, and I don't want to overstate. It was a moment of ego from him, because he's a very good leader, and really. But it also, I think, was a moment of pride for him to be on a podcast and to be talking about his vision of making and serving food at this community and how he manages his team. And I just got a real kick out of being able to tell that story. But then being able to use that to convey what life is like at our communities from one of our staff members, I really think really was exciting, and again just shows how the development of the web and how democratized brands like us can do in the storytelling was, and with the passion, was really a lot of fun.
And you do that with residents as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So during the right as the pandemic hit, and of course, retirement communities really had to shut down and keep many of our residents, within our communities, and couldn't bring in visitors. we used it as a tool of really reaching our residents to see how are they doing, and to be relay their experience, but then also kind of pull from their lessons in life. They've lived these full, rich lives, and have learned a lot of lessons through challenges, whether it was maybe serving in the war or living through polio, and really hearing that perspective that got them through those challenges, so that maybe it teaches some of us and some of our listeners, how we can get through such a difficult time.
And you've, over this 9 years and refining it to be able to tell these stories, you've done how many podcasts now?
So in the year and a half, we've done about almost 40 podcasts in media. We also did some video work as well with our director of wellness, who's doing some at-home exercise videos, just 1-minute videos, little tips that seniors can do to stay active, in their home or apartment or wherever they're living. So it was really fun to really start developing more multimedia content in the midst of the crisis that we were going through.
So in essence, you have, I imagine, programming that goes on in the physical locations around, and you're starting to recreate that experience, it sounds like, in the virtual world.
Yeah. It was at that point where we were really taking different mediums and taking a topic and then publishing in these different mediums, whether we might have a live event over Zoom on a certain topic, and then we take that and do a podcast interview, and then take that and do a blog. And so we push it off on all these different channels. And I think we know everybody wants to consume information differently. So to be able to push it out in these different channels, and then allows us to distribute it via social media or via emails or other channels, it really became this very dynamic and powerful way to communicate and to reach different audiences.
And you were strategic about it, right? And so there's the element of you do things and find new opportunities, but I know you've also done some research as to your demographic and how that is changing, and why you can then go get more budget or get your team rallied around it because you have knowledge. Tell us a little bit about your research. Right.
Yeah. So our organization has always been a big believer in consumer research, and so we did a study over this past summer, and it was already kind of a hunch from what we were seeing the previous year when the pandemic started, but the pandemic really caused a big shift, especially with older adults, in adopting online services and technology. For example, we know older adults are streaming a lot more than they were before the pandemic. They're ordering groceries online. They are attending online religious services rather than in person, because of the very nature of what was going on through the pandemic. So it's really been cool to see older adults adopting technology. I mean, they were going, I was seeing that adoption, but it really accelerated the adoption when the pandemic hit. So with that, we were able to do all this online content and know that it would be, we'd adopt more and more of an audience online, rather than maybe what we were doing before with more traditional manners of media.
And I know when we spoke about yesterday, you were talking about the difference between, it's not a monolithic audience, right? You've got the greatest generation, the silent generation, and the boomers,
right?
Sort of in your demo, if you will.
Right.
What you've learned within that.
Yeah, I think, again, everybody has their favorite ways of communicating, and every generation probably leans on a specific media or channel that they gather information from. So really being able to maybe put more weight into more electronic channels as things evolve really became, whether it be the podcast or a YouTube, video that we're putting on YouTube or our blog, really helped us shift our how we were allocating resources. We might have been doing more print advertising at one point. Now we're doing more what we call native content, where we're placing content on a third-party publishing website. So like here in Cincinnati, we have the Cincinnati Enquirer, which is part of the Gannett network. So it's really helped us kind of shift our where we're working and how we're putting out the content.
Do you work with civic organizations or the arts communities, or public television, radio as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So, again, knowing information about the personas that we work with, we know a lot of them are patrons of the arts or donors to the arts, donors and patrons of public radio and public television. So we've always partnered with them to do sponsorships, whether that be ads in their programs, or those little sponsorships that come up between the programming on public radio or TV. So that's always been a real important part of our strategy, as well as very localized advertising as well. Whether it be some of the there's publications for some of the neighborhoods. We've always tried to be very geographically targeted, in addition to that interest-based targeting.
That's going to be changing quite a bit. What are your thoughts, early on into Apple's initiative on privacy, its impact on tell us your thinking, where you are on that.
Yeah, I think we're still early in that. The Googles of the world, and they're starting to talk about the upcoming changes, and we're hearing about the need for first-party data and how that can be used to match audiences on their platforms. So we've been working with a local consultant and really figuring out, how can we better target amongst these changes. We feel like streaming technologies is really going to be a way to go, whether that be over-the-top television advertising or streaming audio advertising. But then it's about how are we collecting that data, measuring that, and then using it to develop these these audiences based on age, interest, and other parameters, so that we're being as targeted as possible in reducing waste. And it's really kind of an exciting, I think, direction that our industry is moving. It's a little scary from where we've been, because advertising in Google and these other networks have become so democratized and easy for a local or regional brand like ourselves to do advertising, especially with maybe some expertise of digital marketing companies or consultants. But I think there's some promise and real cool opportunities to move forward, again, in ways that we haven't done before.
So if I understand it, first-party data is people that you have a relationship with.
Correct.
And you're able to deliver messages to them, as opposed to Google harvesting, and other organizations, Facebook,
right,
harvesting your information and then making it a product to you as an advertiser,
right,
and reaching the unknown. Now it's switching to people control their privacy, and an organization like yours has to have some sort of connection.
Right, right, and I think that's the beauty of having adopted the inbound marketing philosophy or strategy over the years, is that it's the premise is really again, we're attracting people to our website through our content, and the majority, the most successful content is usually people are coming through an organic search channel, but once they're on our website, our goal is to convert them into a lead, which is gathering their name, email address, and then eventually maybe even more information, like an actual physical address and a phone number, things like that. So then we can use that data to do the targeting that we need ultimately in this new reality that's coming up. So it's, and as I said, it's developed from just having a handful of leads every month into the hundreds. So that builds into the thousands, and our audience can build and again make us more effective in retargeting or targeting in the future. So it's really cool how it all kind of comes together, even for a little, a local or regional brand, like I said, of ourselves.
And the inbound fundamental principle is that relationship is working because you're adding value to what they want to do.
Right. So one of the things I hadn't mentioned, with our the people that we're targeting, whether it be older adults or younger adults, is that sales cycle can be quite a long time. For younger adults, it might be a few months to 6 months as they're looking to place their loved one. For an older adult, it could be 5 to 10 years, quite frankly. They might start this process at 70, 75 and not move in till 80 or 85. So we need to be continually talking with them. And we do that through, the automated email marketing to some extent, and then some monthly content that we're pushing out via email. But it's almost very similar to some extent with B2B that might have some long sales cycles. So that inbound marketing philosophy has really worked well for our industry and our organization as well.
Well, and we're at a point where, again, because of the pandemic, I think companies are seeing marketing much greater role than pretty pictures and messaging. It's really about the infrastructure and the survival of the business.
Yeah, and ultimately, at the end of the day, I think our goal is really to be of help and a resource to our community, because it seems, as we see our parents age and as people age, there's a lot of questions. It's a very complex topic, and so we just try and provide some information to be helpful to the families, in our community, so that, again, when they're ready to move in, they're thinking of us. We're first on their mind.
Very cool. Now, another dynamic that we discussed about the pandemic is how it changed your team. You have a team of people, and they all used to come into an office, and all of a sudden they couldn't come into an office. Tell us about that journey and what it's done to your ability to deliver what we were just talking about.
We needed some software to really help do project management. We have an online subscription service called Todoist that, we really need to track our internal customers' work that we help with, whether it be the sales teams or some of the services that we provide, or even our human resources team. So we do all that tracking, and that allowed us to put it all online and be on the same page. We started working with online file management programs as well, because we're working with some pretty big files when it relates to media, whether that be high resolution photos or video or the audio that we're producing. So we really needed to be able to access that quickly and share it together. So that was really helpful. But it really, and then of course using Zoom right away as well, and having, especially at first, daily meetings, just so we were staying connected. And we weren't always talking about work, but just trying to connect and talk about all the craziness that was going on in the world, and just keep us kind of together. And again, we were able to kind of create as well and consult on our projects. So again, adopting all these technologies, I think, really kept us moving through the pandemic.
And you talked, it was an organizational thing. You talked about how the original VPN and the infrastructure for security and all of that had been status quo, and all of a sudden it wasn't appropriate anymore.
Right. Well, I think, system-wide, a lot of them were using VPN, but it was a struggle for my team to work in that environment, because it was just slower because of the nature of the large files that we were working in. But again, we were taking on using Zoom and having staff meetings, probably I think we started weekly at the time. Again, it was just about staying in touch with people, keeping, things were just changing so rapidly. The information that we were getting from the CDC or other, or our state government bodies was just changing daily and weekly. So being able to communicate and really keeping that positive vibe going for the company was really critical. And I think it's really helped our organization stay closer. We may not be meeting weekly, but we're meeting monthly, and I think that's been a really good thing for our organization.
And then augmenting that with Todoist and Slack and being able to just keep things going,
Right,
without having to spend a lot of time in meetings.
right, exactly.
Change of the dynamic. Was there much training, or did your team adopt it? And tell us a little bit about your team.
Yeah, so we really adopted the internal agency model back when I started 9 years ago. We have a director of communications that oversees all of our blog, our public relations, our some of our printed communications, and she came from a 25-year background in the publishing industry before she came to ERS, so a lot of experience. We also have a creative director on staff that had 30 years in the advertising industry, just working on some really big brands here in Cincinnati. We have a lot of Fortune 500 companies, including Procter & Gamble. So that, having experience on those brands like that really has brought a lot of experience and know-how to our organization. And then we've had a part-time person doing video and photography, and another person really helping doing project management and some additional writing. So it's been so valuable to have that internal team, and they were able to shift and used all these tools with very little training and keep things going. It was pretty amazed, and I was really proud of the team, how they rallied and adapted in this kind of new environment and world that we were living in.
And as you turn the corner into year 3, you're adding a new position, you said.
Yeah, so we had been working with an outside partner for our digital marketing and inbound marketing activities. They were generating a lot of the blogs and social media content and the advanced content that people could download as a resource. And we've decided to really shift that in-house, and we're hiring a integrated marketing position that will do a lot of that planning and production of the writing and then some of the distribution. So I think that'll be a really exciting new add to our team and allow us to really produce more content eventually and push and distribute more content as time moves on. So we're really excited about that change coming up.
And one of the key things that we focus on here at Publio, and you and I've been on for years, as we talked about earlier, is the ROI. And I think, maybe, well, I'd be conjecturing to say, you've risen to vice president and you work now with your CEO, and this has become a much more strategic component at the board and C-level conversation. Tell us a little bit about working then with senior management and how it's viewed in the organization.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of components to that. I mean, they have become, I think, great supporters of our shift to the digital technology from a few standpoints. Knowing that their role and importance in producing content is critical to our success. I have to particularly give a lot of credit to our president and CEO, Laura Lamb, who's become very media savvy. And she's great on camera, or great for an interview for a blog, or being on camera for earned media when it comes to placing, trying to place a public relations story. And she's on our weekly podcast. So she is a great participant in this process. And again, she's that public face to our company. So that's been so critical. And then kind of down at the next level, whether it be our senior management or our directors and managers, who are really the content experts, and they're helping produce this content. Again, we're able to interview them or get them on camera or guests on our podcasts, and to have them help produce that content has been so helpful. They also help identify even some of our residents or customers to become participants in our content. They know the stories that are going on and allow us to again, alert us to those stories and then put us in touch with them. So it's really been a critical to have that buy-in to produce all this content. We produced probably well over 1,500 blogs over the years that I've been here, dozens of advanced pieces of content, hundreds of videos. So, it really takes a village to make that work, and that partnership and buy into the philosophy.
As you can hear our, here at Publio, our mantra and the subtitle of our blog, The Hub, is run your marketing like a media company. And what you're just describing is a news organization.
Well, and that's precisely right. And I think very driven based on our conversations over the year, Keith, and in addition to the inbound marketing. And to that very point, we've established a brand behind our media generation. We started with an online, or not an online, a magazine that was started maybe 30 years ago, well before we started, called Linkage Magazine. And that was produced on a quarterly basis at one point. We're now doing it 2 times a year. But we took that Linkage brand and now we've applied it to our blog. So the blog is now our Linkage blog. We applied it to our podcasts. So we've got the Linkage podcast that we produce. So we've really developed this online media brand to distribute over time. And it's just interesting to see that, again, take off more and more. And especially as we started applying that brand, we've seen the growth of our blog take off. We've seen the podcast, build over time. So it's been really cool to see that strategy along with the inbound strategy take off. And it's I think our blog views are up over 50% this time over last year, and it was 50% from the year before. So it's really helped drive our audience and distribution over time. And
I know a lot of this is an infrastructure question and the ability of various software platforms to talk on the back end. How do you approach ROI, and how do you talk ROI? Are you able to tie things to revenue? Are you working towards that? What about these other more vanity kinds of metrics?
Yeah, it's always been a little easier on the digital end because it is so measurable. So, but attribution is still a challenge. Our CRMs and our content management aren't tied together at this point. Now we have some pretty good ideas of what's generating on our website and then turning into customers, but attribution can be tough, especially when a sales team is involved, because they may be asking somebody, well, how did you hear about us? Well, they may have heard about us from a friend and then saw an ad and then gone to our website, and they may say website. So, we have to take some of that data with a grain of salt, but it's still nice to know where, the various channels people are touching in. What we do know is what the lifetime value of a customer is. And we do know what we're spending in specific channels. And we've kind of benchmarked that versus where we should be spending money from an awareness standpoint to a consideration standpoint of the funnel, or even helping kind of convert into the sales. So we're always trying to look at those benchmarks and where we're spending our money, and then what the overall spend really should look like. So it's a little hard to know each channel's ROI, but again, from a big consideration of, where are they in the funnel, we're definitely taking a look at that. And we decided we really needed to do that during the pandemic, and take a fresh look at it, so that coming out of the pandemic, we would really know the best ways of reaching our customers or our personas.
Well, this has been fascinating. This stuff all ties to global policy. We just had a big infrastructure bill about to pass, and a big chunk of that is going to be investment in more infrastructure. So that's going to bring more people online and broaden the tool set. I think investors are really excited because they're going to be able to invest in new companies in our space, as well as provide more audience opportunities for people like you.
Yeah. And I think, again, with the adoption of technology by older adults and their families, content generation is really going to be a critical part of that. Most people don't think of that infrastructure as content generation, but that's how we support people, is through information. So that's why it's such a critical part of our organization.
Cool. Well, shameless plug for us, but if this sounds interesting, somebody like Bryan, who's been at this for more than 9 years, but 9 years in one position,
right?
If you're trying to get your organization, your team, whether you're a solopreneur with an email list and a deck or a ebook or a white paper, or you're an organization like Bryan's, the same approach is valid. It's time over target.
Yep.
It's being on message. It's having the software. It's having the creative talent. So that can all be, it's not too late to start.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would really encourage listeners out there, as small brands, medium-sized brands, big brands, a system like what Keith's talking about is really critical to have, so that how you're doing things, why you're doing things, when you're doing things, and what that return is, and how you can shift your distribution and or creative practices. The world's evolving to more, internal teams managing marketing. So I think having an understanding of all these different platforms and channels is so critical, and then knowing why you're doing them.
There's a lot of stars in that constellation, and that's, I think, why the system really helps.
Right. And I think it's very critical to have internal champions to developing that content. So
totally. Great. Well, this has been fascinating. Anything you want to plug or tell us about yourself? I know you do some external work with organizations, or any events that you want to, or people you want to thank.
Yeah, I just, we've had a wonderful support system at ERS, again, from my senior management who participates in, our content generation, to my internal team. I have Arlen Graham and Kristen Davenport are just really talented folks, and then to all the people that, have supported us throughout the years. It couldn't have happened with all these great people.
And give our best to Chef. Tell him he was a big part of this conversation.
I'll tell him he was mentioned in yet another podcast. So
totally. Well, that's how it works, people. So thanks for sharing that with us. Just thrilled and proud to be able to keep the conversation going, Bryan. And Jesse, it's always really appreciated what you do to make this happen. You're kind of like Mr. Wilson, behind the fence next door, but you add a lot of value here, and thank you so much. All right, thanks for joining us for this episode of the Publio podcast. We've enjoyed having you part of our show. If you like what you hear, please like, share, and comment across social media and below. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, and find us on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and all of those by searching for Publio. If you are interested in taking our course, please check us out. If your business is in need of a content strategy, we've got a program for you. It's a fully interactive course with worksheets and workbooks and videos, and we'd love to have you be part of the class. And you can always join us for office hours or make one-on-one appointments as well. So check us out at Publio, PUBLI.io on the web, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.